Running back at Alabama. It could be argued that it's been the premier position in the country since the Saban era started, and especially his second season when he really got it rolling there in 2008. Let's break it down for 2020 with Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama. All right, Stephen, let's look at this group, because typically we've got anywhere at one point in this Saban run since 2008, we would have two very accomplished running backs that were NFL ready type guys. And now that's expanded to 4, and to just the entire stable is crazy. And we don't even have anybody moving on of significance to the NFL draft. And just to consider the running backs coming into the room as freshmen that are 4 and 5 stars, and now the running back room, it's just crazy. So only you could probably sort through this mess of a class, starting with Najee Harris. Of course, he's on the field catching 27 passes and 1,200 yards, but sort this thing out for you, because a lot of guys could prove to be in the mix.
It's crazy, Mark. I mean, quite typically, Nick Saban likes to have 5 backs on the roster. 5 is the magic number. Well, he's got 7, so 2 more than what he typically likes to have. Najee Harris comes back, really shocked a lot of people because they felt like he would go to the NFL draft, especially after his performance down the stretch from the LSU game throughout the remainder of the 2019 season. He decides, no, I'm coming back for my senior year. So he brings his 209 carries, 1,224 yards, and 13 touchdowns back to the lineup. Behind him, you got Brian Robinson, a native of Tuscaloosa by way of Hillcrest High School off Alabama Highway 69 South. Came into the 2017 class with Najee Harris, a 4-star at 6'1", 226 pounds. The man runs with toughness. He runs with anger. He runs with physicality, a sense of ferocity that is Brian Robinson. And while he may not have that really one true elite area to his game, he does a lot of things really well. He runs behind his pads well. He run blocks well. He pass blocks well. He showed last season that he can catch the ball out of the backfield a little bit with 11 catches for 124 yards. In terms of the run game, last season was his best season. 96 carries, 441 yards, 5 touchdowns. And he actually came out on Twitter Friday with a post saying 2020 is personal for me. I'm taking this year personally. So Brian Robinson wants to show, hey, it's more than just Najee Harris. I can do some things too, because Brian Robinson knows I got a shot to make the NFL myself. So behind Brian Robinson, here comes Mr. Trey Sanders, by the way, of Florida, came out of IMG Academy, and fans were going nuts when this man came in, the 5-star. I mean, they saw his tape, they saw his game film, and they're like, oh, Lord, if we can get him on the field, how special that young man can be. And I actually watched him throughout fall camp a season ago and just looked phenomenal until he popped his foot, suffered a broken bone to his foot, and it was kind of hurtful there, because you knew if Trey Sanders does not suffer the injury, he had a serious chance of surpassing both Najee Harris and Brian Robinson. So having a Trey Sanders back, it was a big deal. And then behind him, you have Keelan Robinson, by the way of Maryland, by the way of Washington, D.C., St. John's High School in Washington, D.C. And Keelan, Coach Saban says this young man has a lot of juice, and he does. Kind of reminds you of Kenyon Drake, just the initial burst and quickness in the hole, quick feet, low center of gravity, and just once he gets out of that hole, the ability to put on the afterburners and just go. Keelan Robinson is very, very fast, very elusive. Of course, I saw this at the game between Alabama versus New Mexico State. Robinson, a 74-yard burst to pay dirt in that game. So you have him back, and that's just the main 4. Then you sign 3 freshmen with Jace McClellan, a 5-star from Texas, Roydale Williams, a 4-star from Hueytown High School here in Alabama, and Kyle Edwards from Louisiana. So 7 backs on the roster. Alabama won't Alabama fans looking to see all 7 guys play. You have some guys that will ask the question, can Najee Harris have a Derrick Henry type season? I'm not going to go that far just due to Derrick Henry in 2015 had a very special situation. Kenyon Drake was coming off a broken leg against Ole Miss in the previous year, 2014. So you really didn't know what you were going to get in Kenyon Drake. How healthy was he going to be? And then you bring in 2 freshmen, Bo Scarborough and Damian Harris. Bo Scarborough had some academic issues going on, so he couldn't play the first 5 games of 2015. And then Damian Harris, young guy, had to get acclimated to the system. So Derrick Henry, he had to be the guy. He went in the 2015 thinking, I got to be the man. I got to carry this team, which was the reason why he spent the entire offseason, the summer prior to the 2015 campaign, in the gym. He was in the gym every single day, and he got to 6'3", 242 pounds, being in that gym every single day, which is the reason why he had the season that he had, the 2,219 yards and 28 touchdowns en route to winning the Heisman Trophy. He had to be the man. Quite naturally, Nick Saban does not like to go that route. He wants to have a number of backs on the roster, rotating those guys out, keeping fresh legs on the field, and getting each back an opportunity. So with Najee Harris having 6 other guys behind him, those other 6 guys are going to look to touch the football and have some say within this offense.
6, 4, and 5 stars. That's what has to be underlined there. That is just amazing in regards to the depth and the quality of depth, and then the selling ability to those particular student athletes to get them to come to Alabama when they could go to 90% of the schools across the country and be almost assured that they would be starting or be in a 2-back rotation with somebody else is just astounding to me. And then, of course, we'll put the capper on Derrick Henry, who just completed a historic playoff run in the NFL. So 5 years later, he's getting the job done.
That was just crazy what he did last season for the Titans. That was unreal.
They were winning playoff games throwing 6 and 7 passes. That's how good he was.
Yeah, pretty much.
Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama. Please join him right there for Alabama sports coverage. Stephen, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down each and every Alabama position as we head toward a spring practice on March 13th. The best possible way to do that is to bring in Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama. He is all over the roster, the personnel, and the happenings surrounding Alabama sports, not just football. He's got to track everything, but of course, football is front and center. Stephen, how you doing today?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Speaking of tracking everything, got to look at some basketball and some softball today as well.
Oh, my goodness. I don't know how you do it. I really don't. Defensive line for Alabama. I made this comment about the running back position. It could be argued that this is the most stocked position year in, year out in college football over the past decade or so under Nick Saban. Only one significant loss, Raekwon Davis moving on to NFL draft eligibility, should be a top 50 pick, something in that range at the next level. Who's coming back?
Well, number one, LeBron Ray is coming back on the defensive line, former 5-star from Madison, Alabama. Had a foot injury in week 3 of last season against South Carolina, and that foot injury kept him out for the remainder of the year. But LeBron Ray, somebody of whom we know can affect the passing game, can stop the run, really, really good, violent hands, quick feet. So it's great to have LeBron Ray back. Along with him, you bring back a DJ Dale going into his sophomore year out of Clay Chalkville High School in Pinson, Alabama. DJ Dale had a good freshman year, suffered an injury to his knee down the stretch, but he's back at defensive tackle. You got Christian Barmore, and here's a guy, redshirt sophomore, out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, at 6'5", 310 pounds. Here's a guy that people are very excited about. Kind of reminds me of a younger Sean Robinson, plays the game very aggressively, very angrily, if that's the term. on the field, Christian Barmore does. He would have those three guys in Ray, Barmore, and DJ Dale, but Fidarian Mathis is back. Stephon Wynn is back. You have the likes of Justin Aboigbe and Byron Young and Ishmael Sopser and Brandon Ingram. And then from the 2020 class, you bring in Jamarian Latham and Tim Smith, and also Jamarian Latham, Tim Smith, and one big guy here, Jamil Burrows. There we go, Jamil Burrows by way of Georgia. So many strong defensive linemen in this class, and also on the team. But it all starts with the main three in this rotation of DJ Dale at defensive tackle, Brian Ray at defensive end, and the other defensive end being Christian Barmore. So if you look at one Freddie Roach, defensive line coach, if you look at one Nick Saban, and even if you look at one Sal Sunseri, who not only works with the outside linebackers, he does tend to mingle with the defensive line at times as well. Those three coaches in particular, Freddie Roach and Sal Sunseri, they got to be really happy right now with this group on the defensive line.
Yeah, LeBron Ray, of course, as you mentioned, is a sophomore back in 2018 on the field for 13 games, 6 tackles for loss and 2.5 sacks. Was looking to have a big year last year. Before that was cut short as a junior, only played 3 games. Barmore in limited action, 6 tackles for loss. He got into the backfield, a couple sacks for him, and Dale had 3 tackles for loss. So is this position, as it's obviously very strong, is it Alabama strong?
I think it is. And it goes back to getting the right coaching in here to push the potential out of these young men. And you bring in a Freddie Roach, who was here twice before on Nick Saban's staff, 2008 to 2010. Roach served as an assistant strength coach under Scott Cochran. And then 2015 and 2016, he came back as a director of player development. And in both of those stints, he saw 2 national championships, one in 2009, of course, the other in 2015. If you look at Roach's work as a defensive line coach at Ole Miss from 2017 to 2019, we're talking about 84 sacks combined in those 3 years. Of the 84, 58.5 from the defensive line perspective. That's about 70% of those sacks coming from the D9. And Freddie Roach did this with guys like Josiah Coatney and Benito Jones, more so of your 2- and 3-star prospects. Now, Ole Miss will come up on a 4- and 5-star here and there, but the majority of this 2- and 3-stars. So Roach got the utmost out of those guys. And you're at Alabama, where 4- and 5-stars run wild. So he's going to get the most out of this group as well. And the crazy thing about Coach Roach is, from the state of Alabama, from Killen, Alabama, going towards that North Alabama area. And of course, he was a very decorative linebacker in his career with the Crimson Tide from 2001 to 05. That 05 season, he was part of that defense that was in the top 10 in the country in all 5 major defensive categories, playing alongside the likes of Juwan Simpson and D'Amico Ryans and Rudy Griffin, Ramsey Robinson, Roman Harper, Charlie Pepper, names that really ring a bell in terms of Alabama fans that were a part of this program long before Nick Saban made headway in here. So Freddie Roach, you get the right coach in here, you can have the guy that push the talent and the potential out of these young men, and that's what Coach Roach looks to do with this litany of talent that you got here on the defensive line.
Steven, where can we find you on Twitter?
They can find me on Twitter at Coaching M. Smith on Twitter. At Coaching M. Smith, doing a lot of high school coaching to my guys here at Francis Marion High School. My boys are trying to win a state championship in basketball now.
Nice.
But I coach them in football. So that's at Coaching M. Smith on Twitter.
We, of course, have been following each other for years. I just didn't want to I wanted to get that straight for everybody out there. And also follow me on Twitter at MarkRogersTV. Thank you so much, Steven.
No problem, Mark. Thank you.